Zara pressed her palm against the icy viewport, her breath fogging the glass as she scanned the endless void outside. Stars flickered like distant memories of a time before Thade drifted so far from home. Behind her, alarms blared a harsh, unrelenting wail that pulled her back to the reality inside the ship, the very ship that had betrayed them. Zara! A voice punctured the tension, sharp as the crackle of static. Felix was scrambling down the corridor, his face ghostly pale beneath the pulsating blue of the emergency lights. What? She turned, chest tightening with each thud of his footsteps. Did you find the control room? Control room's gone rogue. He halted, hands bracing against his knees, gasping for breath. The systems are locking us out. We can't access the navigational chart, not without codes. Her heart raced. Where's Tara? Felix shook his head, hair plastered to his forehead. Still in engineering, trying to manually divert power. But he hesitated, the flicker of vulnerability in his eyes sending a jolt of cold through her gut. What if it's too late? Zara turned back to the viewport, fingers curling against the glass. We don't have time for that kind of thinking. An explosion rattled the vessel, a gut-wrenching shudder that propelled them both forward. She caught herself against the wall, instincts kicking in. What was that external hull breach, whatever hit us causing more damage than we thought? Felix's voice rose higher, edged with desperation. Grab a toolkit, anything you can find. We need to fix this. She pointed toward the storage compartment overhead before returning her gaze to the blank expanse beyond. The ship was a coffin adrift in a cosmos that had swallowed them whole, and shed be damned if she let it become their grave. It's not just a hull breach. Felix's voice trembled with urgency. There's a ship out there, Zara. I saw it before the feed cut. Old model, maybe a salvage vessel might have supplies. Her pulse quickened further, a rush of adrenaline releasing the tension pooling in her chest. He swallowed hard. Or worse, maybe they want our tech. Then we'll outsmart them, she said, voice firm. We can take them off guard. We've been learning to repel pirates since we were kids. Not everyone is as well trained as you. He hesitated, letting the words hang heavy between them. Her expression hardened. And what? You think we should just lie down and die? We grab the toolkit or we take our chances with whatever's out there. Felix stared at her, a wild mix of admiration and fear flashing in his eyes. All right, then. Toolkit it is. As he dashed past her, the ship rattled again. A deep groan resonated through the hull, and the controls flickered. Her stomach dropped. In that moment, she felt the weight of the cosmos pressing down on her, an oppressive reminder that time was finite. They could be the last remnants of humanity, lost to the expanding universe, and the stakes here were beyond personal. Zara tore her gaze from the viewport, torn between hope and dread. The ship had been their home, a mere instrument of exploration turned into a vessel of despair. A fragment of regret clung to her internal monologue, a sense of loss for what they'd done. Scavenging the stars had once seemed like a grand adventure. Now, trapped in the barrenness of space, she followed Felix down to the storage area. They passed through a narrow corridor cloaked in flickering shadows, the air thick with the scent of burnt circuits. Each step was met with a chorus of screeching metal, a reminder that every moment spent lingering in indecision was another moment closer to the inevitable. Here, Felix shouted, jamming his shoulder against the hatchway of the storage compartment. The dim interior reflected their panic-scattered tools and emergency supplies littered like breadcrumbs, leading them deeper into chaos. We need the plasma tool, Zara said, scanning the cluttered space. Her heart raced as she shoved aside a tangle of wires, the cold metal harsh against her fingers. They'd trained for this, prepared for years, and yet here they were, their skills merely another thread in a fraying rope. Found it. Felix's relief echoed through the compartment as he held up a small device, its soft glow illuminating the fear etched in his features. You did good, she reassured him, briefly letting her hand rest on his shoulder, the butt of camaraderie against the social tension that had wrapped them. Let's hope it's enough, he murmured, though their eyes skimmed the remnants of their reality. Zara nodded, ripping into action. Well, go back. Quick repairs. Then we get to the control room to re-establish contact. Assuming there's anyone left to contact, he began, but the urgency on her face silenced him. The ship flared back to life beneath their feet, like a soul awakening after slumber. Don't say that, she bit back, fierce determination pushing her forward, regardless of the odds stacked against them. Uncertainty paralleled the coldness of space as she imagined their crewmates, scattered in the chaos, fighting their own battles. Her wariness turned from regret to resolve. They couldn't just hope any longer. As they labored around sparks and fumes, the ship bucked again, a sharper jolt this time, sending loose equipment crashing to the ground. Felix stumbled, but Zara steadied him, heartache twisting into a bittersweet intensity. Stay focused. We're getting through this, she urged, both to herself and Felix, as they rushed together back toward the dimly lit heart of the ship. But when they reached the control room's door sealed tight, the lights flickering inside the weight of their reality settled heavily once more. "Tara," Zara shouted, pounding against the door. "Are you in there?" Silence. Felix and Zara exchanged glances, profound fear turning to sheer inevitability. "We might have to override," he swallowed hard, "or just break the door." Zara said, voice steely, "Hand me that crowbar." He passed the tool reluctantly, concern shadowing his face. What if it's not just locked? What if there's no time? She gritted her teeth, taking aim at the metal door panel. The ship screamed in protest, lights bathing them in a flickering glow, as the vessel's core trembled, Jenga stacked in a tethered world. With a grunt, Zara swung it forward, metal shrieking as it crushed against the locking mechanism. Whatever lay behind it, she couldn't let it be the end of them. The door resisted for a heartbeat too long before it gave way with a resounding crash, sending them tumbling into the dim chaos beyond inside the control chamber, where the flickers of their fate danced dangerously close to shadow. Tara, the name echoed back to them, swallowed in the murky haze of uncertainty, but inside, a voice whispered from the other side of the chamber, cutting through the gloom, "Zara, get down." In the heart of turmoil, they were a trio entangled in the web of a universe too vast and chaotic. All sins of the past would soon collide with the terrifying truth they had yet to uncover. Whatever was out there hadn't finished hunting them yet. And one detail loomed larger than all. Between survival and loss lay a dark reveal, the answer hiding in a vastness they could not escape. As Zara stumbled into the control chamber, the stench of burnt electronics and something acrid flooded her senses. The lights flickered, casting erratic shadows that danced along the walls and sent waves of paranoia through her. Felix followed closely behind, heart racing, eyes darting around for danger. They both stiffened at Tara's voice. "Get down." Tara's silhouette loomed in the direction of the control console, her hands gripping a blast shield. Her expression was fierce, wild, the nature of her focus palpable as she peered through the viewport, scanning the chaos outside. "What the hell is happening?" Zara shouted over the cacophony of alarms. "Thayer boarding, I think." Tara managed, drawing a breath before peering back outside. "A salvage crew. They've taken down our external defenses. We're vulnerable." Felix's eyes widened, panic written across his face. "Why didn't you say something sooner?" Tara shot him a glare loaded with frustration. "Because there wasn't time. I had to reroute power to the shield generators before they blasted through." Zara shook her head. "Then we're halfway there. We can backtrack." She stepped toward the console, assessing crimson alerts flashing rapidly across the screens. They were flickering just like their chances of survival. "If we can get the shields back online, there's no time," Tara interrupted, moving to the console with the tempo of a dancer. "They'll breach this door in seconds. We have to make a decision, or we will lose it all." Zara clenched her fists, frustration mixing with a sense of urgency. "Then we improvise. Whatever supplies we can throw together. We'll send a distress signal. They won't expect us to act fast." She glanced at Tara, who was already attempting to access the ship's communication systems, fingers flying over the console. Felix lingered behind, caught between the two women, feeling the tension escalate like a charged plasma reactor ready to explode. "What if they are armed? We're outnumbered. We can't just fight them, Zara. Fulfilling our training won't save us if we sit here waiting to be picked off." She shot back but softened her voice slightly, remembering their bond. We need to do this together. The urgency of the moment brought them back to a fragile unity. Tara flicked switches, already scanning the technology behind the console. I can bypass the communications block, but we are only getting one transmission through. We'll need a diversion. Then I will create one, Zara decided. Felix, grab some explosives from the emergency cache. If they are already halfway through, we'll need to delay them. Felix hesitated as images of the chaos outside flashed through his mind. What if it backfires? Zara moved closer, steadying him with an intense stare. Then we fight. Trust me. With a heavy nod, Felix dashed through the auxiliary corridor toward the emergency cache, adrenaline kicking in. Tara's gaze was intense, her lips pressed together tightly. What if it's about more than just survival? What if they are after the ship's tech? In that moment, everything shifted. Suddenly, it wasn't just a battle for survival. It was a battle for their legacy, their values, the embodiment of their mission to explore. If they take it, we can't let that happen. Zara's resolve deepened. The tech we have is designed to protect and explore, not to destroy. Well, make sure it doesn't fall into the wrong hands. Tara nodded, impressed despite the circumstances. Right? I know there's a weapons cache in the foredeck. If we can use the diversion, we might be able to access it and increase our odds. Zara's heart raced with possibilities. You draw the boards with the console side. I'll slip out and grab the weapons. I'll go with you. Tara insisted, but Zara shook her head firmly. Stay here, maintain control. You're crucial to managing everything. Tara settled slightly, but uncertainty flickered in her eyes. Just be careful. Zara grabbed her arm, holding it just for a moment, grounding them both. We will make this right. As she left the command chamber, the clamor of metal crashing echoed in the corridors, punctuating her resolve. She reached the threshold, leaning against the blank metal of the corridor, readying the rest of her mind. Felix was kneeling by the cache, hastily packing explosives into a rugged kit. Quickly, we don't have time, Zara urged, her voice cracking under the weight of urgency. Felix looked up, determination etched across his face. I know. I got everything we need. They are moving fast. I can hear them. Let's go, she urged, leading the charge as they raced back toward the control room. Each footfall felt heavy with consequence, propelling them toward the unknown. Just as they reached the door, it shuddered violently, an ominous cough of metal warning them. Felix froze, a line of dread accentuating his features. What happens if they break through? We won't be able to fend them off. Zara tightened her fingers around the explosives they'd pilfered. We have to create that distraction first. Everything else comes next. Ready? He whispered as a series of rapid knocks echoed from the other side, increasing in both speed and intensity. We've got no choice, she replied simply. With one quick motion, they pushed the door open to reveal the control room. Tara remained behind the console, her fingers gliding along the displays, lights flashing around her as she tuned her focus. Once they enter, channel the emergency lockdown. We want them stuck. The warning shrills intensified, and seconds stretched taut. Zara scanned for any glimpse of their pursuers. On my mark, the door buckled again, this time a full-on attempt to breach, rattling them to the core. Now, Zara shouted, adrenaline pumping through her. Felix hurled a few small explosives at the entryway, sending them tumbling into the corridor as fiery sparks erupted. The sound echoed like a thunderclap, reverberating against the ship's indifference. Lock it down, Tara hollered, flicking an emergency switch that buzzed with life. The control room rattled as they heard howls of surprise meld with the piercing alarms. The room went quiet aside from the whir of machinery. Zara gulped, pulse racing. They'll come for us. Felix rushed to the communications console, frantically plugging in cables. Trying to reach any nearby vessels for help. The door exploded apart with a thunderous crack, and figures clad in dark space suits lunged into the room, weapons drawn and chaos exploding behind them. Zara ducked instinctively, but Felix stood paralyzed, mouth agape at the sheer madness unfolding. We need to react, Tara shouted, grabbing a position behind a console. Zara, cover. Zara retrieved a compact plasma gun from a nearby storage shelf, the weight feeling alien in her hands but reassuring. They weren't merely parts of a ship. They weren't powerless. It'll distract them. Felix, weapons are with you. With a shout, Zara leapt to the side of the console, firing toward the figures storming through the door. 2 shots echoed in the chaos, and she could see their aggressive advance waning as the explosion echoed yet again. Felix's fingers flew across the console, fingers tapping through a host of unfamiliar displays. "I'm still trying to hail for help. Don't worry about that now. We need you here. Coordinates locked. Transmitting." Felix gritted through clenched teeth, sweat dripping from his brow. "Well, send the signal and not during a firefight." Zara shot back, blazing another round into the approaching shadows. The figures swerved against the console, but her aim had catapulted their panic. The breaches happened quickly, arms raised, revelation flitting behind desperate eyes, but fury began to break through. "Who the hell are you?" one of them bellowed, brushing aside smoke with a shaky hand. "With weapons like that, we should be asking you the same question." Tara yelled from her position defensively. "How many of you are there?" Zara had an edge, building conviction. "We can help you," the leader shouted back, eyes wild with confusion and anger, but desperation tainted the air. "We don't want to hurt you." Taking a split second, Zara traded glances with Tara, deciphering the unspoken words. "Why should we trust you?" Suddenly, the control room lit up under a barrage of noise, blaring lights flashing across the walls. Tara motioned toward a large screen mounted to the far side, streaming like wildfire, revealing multiple ships surrounding their own vessel, buzzing with signals. "Rear flank, we're not just under attack. The entire fleet is closing in," Tara yelled, panic ricocheting through the room. "Help us, we need to coordinate our defense," the leader shouted, urgency radiating from the unexpected ally. Zara kept her weapon raised. "Why? Because they'll take you too. You don't understand. They are scavengers. They'll strip this ship and leave nothing behind." Against the backdrop of chaos, something softened in Zara's resolve, the wall of combatants revealing scars that marked them. "Right now, we're just trying to survive." "Then, help us." The seconds stretched, a battle of survival intersecting their fates. Each word carried the weight of what they had trained for against the starkness of reality. Zara glanced at Felix, who stood isolated, hands frozen over the console, then back to Tara. Their faces mirrored the confusion as unspoken trust flared amid a cyclone of violence. "Zara, we need a plan," Tara urged, brow furrowed, caught in her own doubt. "We can't waste time." "Fine," Zara finally relented, scanning their surroundings. Her heart pumped with adrenaline as she lowered the weapon, for the moment deciding whether they were ally or enemy. But time was running out. "Well, gather defenses, explosives along the hallway, and you'll help us figure out how to contact the fleet." As they positioned themselves for combat, alliances scurried forward, the lines of survival blurred in a cosmic storm. Together, they were a montage of different backgrounds converging in a single desperate mission. While the universe pressed in, the threat seemed more imminent. The ship remained a vessel of promises, a living thing under siege as they made their final stand against the shadows that wanted to claim what they loved. The stakes rose with Kata explosion, the true enormity of what was at risk pulsing beneath their skin, pushing them forward. For Zara, the air grew thick with anticipation, a count drawn, an echo pulsing in the infinity, wordlessly drawing them toward a moment where the edge of survival would merge with fate, power intertwining through necessity, resistance and trust on this grand theater of hubris and hope. The air crackled with tension as Zara, Tara, Felix, and their newfound salvagers stood together. Heartbeats synchronized as they braced for the impending storm outside. The sound of metal grinding against metal echoed through the hallways of the ship, reminding them that their sanctuary was seconds away from being invaded. Their fates were unwillingly entwined, and time was running out. Zara took a deep breath, her hand steady as she gripped her plasma gun. "We need to gather supplies. There's an auxiliary storage room down the hall. We can fortify the entrances with explosives," she said, casting a glance at Tara, whose lips pressed tightly together in thought. Felix's hands trembled at the console, the blinking screens an ominous reminder of their need for communication. But this had to be prioritized. "I'll follow you," Felix said, stepping up beside her. "Let's make this count." "No," Tara interrupted firmly, her eyes scanning the doorway where shadows flickered. "If they breach and someone's left here, then we can't afford to lose anyone," Zara countered, her heart racing. "We fight together. If we're divided, they'll pick us apart." Besides, the leader of the salvagers spoke, his voice low and urgent. "We can take a few of us to the storage area. The rest can defend here. We'll have enough to barricade ourselves while maintaining some offensive options. It's our best bet." Zara nodded, the conviction strengthening her resolve. Desperate times called for desperate measures, but they wouldn't have to face this without mutual trust. With one quick motion, she rallied their forces, grouping together 6 of their most capable fighters, Tara among them. The salvagers moved in rhythm, their urgency translating into efficient movement as they bolted into the dimly lit corridor. The path twisted slightly, mere shadows against the ongoing cacophony. As they approached the auxiliary storage room, Zara felt the creeping sense of determination clawing at her. She kicked open the door, revealing the room stacked with crates filled with various supplies and equipment, a sigh of relief spilling from her lips. "Here, grab it all," she yelled. Tara and Felix moved quickly, distributing the explosives into backpacks and readying armaments for quick access. The salvagers worked in a frenzy, replicating their earlier urgency as echoes of chaos reminded them that seconds felt like minutes. Zara felt the world compressing around her, the collapsing tunnel that was their life compressing into a single point of focused energy. "They are coming through," one of the salvagers cried out, eyes wide with panic. "Hold steady," Zara barked, her voice cutting through the anxiety. "Let's create a barrier." Felix sprinted forward, tears blinding him momentarily as he fixed one of the crates into place. "I wish," he managed before cutting himself off, as if the words becoming too heavy to lift. Zara sensed the weight of his thoughts, remembering their discussions about purpose and identity. He wanted to make something of himself to matter. Now, here they were, on the precipice of honor and duty. She steeled herself, her heart surging with emotion. None of them wanted this. "We will," she affirmed, a spark of hope igniting in her chest. "We owe it to ourselves to make it count." The sound of pounding on the cabin doors reverberated like a war drum, eyes darting from enemies to each other, lest fear take them down the wrong path. They were united now, she like Felix, Tara, and the salvagers despite their origins were carved of similar shadows. Their fears, regrets, hopes merged into what stood before them, a swirling tempest igniting an electrifying atmosphere. The door to the control room buckled under heavy blows. Zara's impulse was racing to meet her senses, forcing her into combat mode. "Now," she shouted, signaling the group to erect barricades from the supplies they had commandeered. The retreating sound of footsteps clustering at the doorway made them all jump, but Zara, with another swift decision, sprang into action. She took her place at the door, plasma gun aimed in anticipation. Across the space, she caught Tara's steely gaze. "On my count," she whispered. The tension thrummed, unified and palpable like live wires. 3, 2, 1. On 1, the door splintered inward, smoke billowing around them, muffled curses and words spilling into the air. She squeezed the trigger, the plasma bursting forth in a brilliant flash, blinding anything in its path. Cries erupted as the shadows coalesced into reality. A motley group of attackers, armed to the teeth and wearing expressions scratched together under dark glass visors. Zara held her breath, aware that they weren't just fighting for survival. They were fighting to reclaim what had been lost, defending their future from those who wished to take even the fragments of hope they had left. In that moment, time had revealed who they really were. It wouldn't be the fear blunted in shadow, but the light within them, a looming resolve billowing against the darkness encroaching upon them. "Keep firing," Tara yelled, wielding a weapon halfway down the entry. The others mirrored her, launching their makeshift bombs toward the advancing hostiles. Flames erupted, igniting the air a chaotic dance of light and shadows. Zara refocused, charging forward into the fray, the sounds of war erupting around her. Her heart raced as she weaved through flames and dark figures, launching grenades against their ranks. The sense of control was liberating, the vulnerability of despair gradually transforming into a unified force teetering just at the edge of seizing something great. But then, her breath caught in her throat as she spotted Felix. He was pinned against the rear wall, struggling under the weight of an attacker. "Felix!" she screamed, adrenaline flooding her veins. She barely had time to think as she hurled herself through the chaos, plasma gun aimed ahead. For seconds that felt like lifetimes, she fought against both fear and enemy hands, the adrenaline weaving through her as she leveled her weapon, fear gripping all that she was. She squeezed the trigger and shot the shadow encasing Felix before it had any time to react. There was a moment of silence, one that framed the chaos of war around them, a heartbeat of hope. He gasped, scrambling free, eyes alight with fear. "Zara," he cried, the relief radiating in palpable waves. "I'm here," she declared, a moment of camaraderie beneath fleeting time. As the plunger detonated, the explosion roared through the corridor, flames licking at the walls and engulfing the shadows in an inferno. The chaos erupted around them, a confluence of muffled screams and the shattering sounds of those hoping to dismantle their unity. The terror morphed into exhilaration, driving her forward with bold intentions. "Don't stop. We can get through this." And just like that, Zara felt the tide shift, a flicker of hope igniting against the phantoms of despair. Together, with every ounce of strength they could muster, they pushed against their attackers, reclaiming their very identities as guardians of their journey. Yet, beyond the swirling chaos, a figure emerged. Dark and towering, wrapped in a shadow that whispered through the cabin, the leader persisted. His eyes glinted as he surveyed the scene, lips curling into a menacing smile. "You think this little uprising will matter?" A voice layered in confidence pressing against their resolve. "You're outnumbered. Soon you'll fall, just as all the others." "Enough," Tara shouted back, her voice severing the tension like a blade. "You're wrong. We will not fall." With a move fueled by instinct, Zara turned to her allies, scanning the tides shifting against them. "It's not just survival, it's our legacy, every dream and every moment built toward this life together." Felix stepped beside her, adrenaline thrumming through his veins. "I never realized how much I wanted this until now." His voice rang out, fear transforming into resolve. With their strength unified, they rallied, hands reaching toward the unknown, transforming fear into unity, a bond that transcended shadows. Just when doubt would have clouded their paths, they broke through the veil with a potent force, unwilling to crumble against the odds. Zara and Tara whispered resolutely, steering their comrades into action. With renewed fervor, everyone fought back the echoes of lost dreams and new resolve channeling into ferocity. Debris flew as the invaders pushed against the barricades, but the sparks of rebellion avenged their past. The leader of the attackers stumbled back sharply, snarling in disbelief as the rising force overtook him. In that moment, the energy surged, they secured their claims. The lines of fate intertwined, with bodies crashing against each other. The future loomed against them with resolute clarity. "Now," Zara yelled, and in a decisive thrust, she lunged forward alongside Tara and Felix, each of them a specter of their former selves. The explosion erupted behind them, sending flames into the threshold of what was once their defeat, smoldering remnants of despair pushing them forth with newfound strength. Moments melded together around them, time stretched but felt coherent. They fought together, reclaiming their vessel, becoming harbingers of their own fate. Zara distanced herself slowly, catching glimpses of everyone rallying together. Each of them reflected something inside of her. Echoes of doubt transformed into something alive, beautiful and fearsome. As the dust settled, she caught the first light of dawn spilling through the breach. The skeletal form of the salvage ship disintegrated, revealing yawning voids where once they thought only shadows bound them. But instead, light surged, revealing the fragments, reminding her of their journey, a tapestry woven together through courage and heart. the last remnants of the battle scattered into silence. They stood amidst the chaos, forged together by the flames of resistance, and in the flickering light, something shifted within her. Felix turned toward her, eyes gleaming bright against the remnants of darkness. "This means everything," he said, breath steadying. "It does," Zara affirmed, feeling the weight of the event wash over them. "We did it together. We can breathe again." But something hung in the electrifying atmosphere. The light yet felt dim against a lingering question, one that weighed heavily on her conscience. What lay beyond this moment? They had taken back control, but the realities of their journey unfurled, forever changing and unresolved. Somewhere beyond the shadows of their fears hid their ghosts, beckoning like distant stars amidst the void. "The journey's not over," she murmured, glancing at Tara and her fellow salvagers. Together, they forged new paths ahead, alliances carved in colors brighter. As they gathered amidst the wreckage, the dread that once gripped them loosened, empowering them toward a reality molded anew. And though the universe stretched vast and foreboding, they would confront what lay ahead together, navigators of a future fraught with shadows but warmed by unyielding light. And in that resolve, Zara knew they'd always carry the spark against the shadows, remnants of dreams lighting the path forward. Beneath the infinite canopy of stars, they found solace in each other, the sheer brightness of connection spilling out into the cosmos, powerful and undying. Their journey had just begun.